Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a podcast exclusively designed to create more reproductive health awareness and discuss your fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight's topic is egg thawing. So now that you're ready to use your eggs, you have to ask yourself the question, what the F? So basically today we're going to talk about the effing, and I'm just trying to be funny, but what I mean by that is the fertilization part and fertility. So we'll talk a little bit more about egg thawing, and I'm not going to be throwing any egg thawing parties or anything like that. If you don't know, I started Egg Freezing Party in 2014, but I do talk about the importance of understanding the steps that I'm going to talk to you about tonight before you thaw your precious eggs. So sit back, watch the show. You can chat with your questions. You can always send them to me later as well. Email at eggwhisper.com. So step one is basically, where are your eggs? Where are they located? And where are they going to go from here? So if you froze your eggs maybe 5 to 6 years ago, perhaps they're in long-term storage. And before you bring them back to the lab, make sure they're prepared to have them and receive them. See if they need a media kit. So a media kit isn't something from TV. It's actually fluid used to thaw your eggs. So that's usually ordered in advance of them accepting your eggs. So before they thaw your eggs, they need to have that kit. So you can be a part of the process by asking these questions. Is everything ready for my eggs to be thawed? And a really good lab will obviously take care of this step for you, but it isn't a bad idea to always look out for yourself, because you'll hear me say this over and over and over tonight. Your eggs are precious. You only get one chance to thaw them, right? So get it right the first time. So step 2 is preconception testing. And if you go to TUSHYmethod.com, you'll read more about the TUSHY method. But basically, it is so important to do a thorough fertility evaluation, even though you've already frozen your eggs. Don't take anything for granted. Maybe you had an ultrasound 2 years ago. Do it again. Do a cavity evaluation. Check your tubes, make sure that they aren't blocked and you aren't at risk for an ectopic pregnancy before you transfer. Check the uterus, which is the U. Check sperm, which is the S. Check your hormones like your thyroid, vitamin D, prolactin. And lastly, be sure to do a genetic profile and look at your genetics. Do a carrier screen, a reproductive genetic profile, a cancer screen if needed as well. And talk to your doctor and make sure that you've done the right preconception testing and preparation before you jump into trimester 1. So focus on trimester 0, which I call the jump school before you jump out of a plane. Most Americans spend more time thinking about vacation than preparing for a pregnancy. But if you've frozen your eggs, you're not one of those people. You've obviously thought about your fertility. You've thought about your fertility so much that you went through a pretty involved process called egg freezing. So before you thaw, go through these 8 steps that I'm going to review with you tonight. So the next step is sperm, sperm, sperm. So if you're a fertility patient, you know all too well all the tests, the blood draws, the hormones, the probes, the biopsies, the surgery that you went through to have your eggs frozen. Now that they're frozen and you're going to thaw them, you don't want to learn that the sperm should have gone through a sperm fitness challenge beforehand. That's not the day. Once your eggs are thawed, you don't want surprises. So do the same advanced sperm test that you did on yourself. Look at DNA fragmentation. If you're older now that you're ready to use your frozen eggs, maybe the sperm sources or the sperm donor or your partner is older as well. Are they smoking? Are they drinking? Are they on the pizza and beer diet? Do they need a, literally, sperm fitness challenge? I love this picture. It was from a men's health magazine that I was interviewed for. So again, sperm, sperm, and then more sperm. I can't stop enforcing that enough, because I've heard so many stories of women who have thawed their eggs and then found out the sperm just wasn't strong enough. And if they had known, they would have waited. So don't find out the hard way. So step 4 is infectious disease labs. This is part of the routine stuff. We do it for everyone. The infectious disease labs need to be within 2 years of your embryo transfer. Every state is different, so ask your doctor. So don't be surprised if they want to check your HIV again. We're not concerned that you have a sexually transmitted infection or disease at all. We just have a very simple checklist that we need to go through. So step 5, and this is one of the things that I talk to every single one of my patients about, and that's implantation testing. So you're probably wondering, why do I have a picture of a party on the screen? Well, think of it as your evite for your embryo transfer. When you get an evite or an invitation to a party, you get a time to show up. Well, what if the time that your embryo is supposed to show up is different than the time that you showed up for? Well, if you're too early or too late, all the tables and chairs could be not put out or have been already taken out of the party room. And so when your embryo is ready to show up, you want to know that they're ready to sit at that table and party for 9 months. So that's the kind of testing that I do. I literally would get a report, and that's called the ERA test. And that report will tell me how many hours of progesterone a patient needs to be on before the embryo transfer. So it's kind of like the Evite for your embryo transfer. And without it, you may be transferring at the wrong time. And I don't want that to happen to any of my patients who've worked so hard on doing everything possible to give themselves the best chance of future pregnancy with their frozen eggs. So implantation testing is something that I do on all of my egg freezing patients. It isn't just for people who have implantation failure, in my humble opinion. It isn't for patients to do or discuss after they've had a failed transfer. It's something that you do up front because we don't want to take for granted your precious eggs. And again, we want to be sure that you've done everything possible to give yourself the best chance for pregnancy with these eggs. So now, the next step that I go through with my patients is a lesson on embryos. What does a fertilized egg look like? What does a day 3 embryo look like? What does a blastocyst look like? And the reason why it's important to know those things and to know how it would look, for example, on a calendar, is because the next question we ask is, are we going to do genetic testing? Do you want to find out if an embryo has a balanced set of chromosomes or not? And the reason why I call this the crystal ball is because some people think it's a crystal ball. And you can see here that it's kind of murky. And it's important for people to know that doing genetic testing is just about chromosomes. So that's why it's important to do carrier screening, to see if you and the sperm source have shared genetic mutations that we have to do more advanced testing on the embryos. Without that, you wouldn't know. And some people think that when you say genetic testing, it means you know everything about the embryo. And we're not there yet. We don't know how tall your child's going to be. We don't know the eye color, the IQ. None of those things. We can't look at traits or designer babies or create designer babies. All we can do is know that you're going to have a higher chance of pregnancy and a lower chance of miscarriage. And even a genetically tested embryo may still have, at most, a 75 to 80% chance of implanting, because nothing is guaranteed and nothing is 100% when it comes to human biology and thawing your precious eggs. So, step 8 is fresh or frozen. So when you go through genetic testing and your doctor has talked to you about what the embryos look like, the next option that you're going to have is to either take hormones for a couple weeks and then overlap with progesterone. So when it comes to fresh or frozen, your doctor is going to review what that means. So when you're ready to use your embryos, you're probably going to go on medications. Estrogen for a couple of weeks and then overlapping with progesterone for 1 week. So you can basically put an embryo in without freezing it first, or you freeze it and then get your body ready for the transfer. So for my patients, the decision is whether we transfer fresh or frozen really has to do with how many eggs do they have? How old were they when they actually froze those eggs? What is the viability going to be when they come out of the thaw? Should we be prepared for doing a fresh transfer? Because what if the embryos just aren't strong enough? What if I feel like they just aren't strong enough to make it through a biopsy, a freeze, and then a thaw? Well, I don't want to be in a position where I didn't give my patient their very best chance for pregnancy. And so sometimes I say, look, let's just be prepared for a transfer. And if the embryos are super strong, great, we'll do genetic testing. And sometimes you can even transfer without freezing the embryo first. So talk to your doctor about what that means, because it means different things for different people, depending, again, on your age, the strength of the eggs, and the information that you get from the egg freeze report is invaluable. So when I do an egg freeze for a patient, I always tell them what I think their egg viability is like. I tell them what the physical characteristics are of the eggs that the embryologist reported to us. Were they granulated? Were they vacuolated? Did they look grainy or dark? Did they look really good? I mean, those are the things that you want to know. Because if you found out when you thawed the eggs that they actually didn't look as good in the beginning, you might feel pretty disappointed that you didn't have a chance to do another egg freeze. So ask yourself this question: how many kids do I want? Do I have enough embryos for my future family? And even if you're using your frozen eggs, maybe there's still a chance for you to go through another IVF cycle or egg freeze if needed. And the last thing that I talk to my patients about is, should you thaw all your eggs and put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak? So let's say you have 20 frozen eggs. Maybe don't thaw all 20. Maybe thaw 5 at first and leave the rest frozen and see what happens, because having unused embryos means different things to different people. So really think through that. Maybe your relationship isn't as stable as you would like it to be. So perhaps don't fertilize all your eggs with that sperm source at this time, and maybe save some eggs for later. So I hope you learned a lot from this show. These are the 8 steps that I talk to all my patients about. So I want this journey when it comes to thawing your eggs to be super smooth and easy, and you feel like you've been informed, that you've had all your questions answered, and that you're giving yourself the very best chance. And you never look back and say, I could have done things better. If you go through these 8 steps, you literally can't ever say that you didn't give yourself your very, very best chance. So thanks for watching the show. Go to my Medium account to read my blog articles, my website, my YouTube show, and as always, you can always find me on social media and message me on Facebook, or just email me at email@eggwhisperer.com. You guys have a great night.
Thank you so much for listening and making the Egg Whisperer Show a part of your weekly routine. To find show notes and a full transcript for this episode, visit dramy.org and look under the blog tab. While you're there, you can find a link for the Egg Whisperer newsletter, which keeps you in the know about fertility news. You can also find Dr. Amy and the Egg Whisperer Show on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook. If you'd like to learn even more, Dr. Amy offers classes at the Egg Whisperer School, eggwhispererschool.com, or you can request a consultation on dramy.org. Thank you so much for tuning in and for sharing the Egg Whisperer Show with others. Keep sparkling and have a great day.